I'm Kevin with Minnesota Habitat Enhancement. We're a land management company based up in northern Minnesota. We do everything from land consults, from designing your property to the best it can be, fulfilling the potential of any property that you might throw at us. We do lots of we take it from step one, which is planning, all the way through the finishing phases. We want it to be great now. Land's a big investment. We want it to be great now, but we want it to be even better 20 years down the road. So if you're looking for something like that, we're the people to get a hold of up in this area. We service most of northern Minnesota, probably all the way down to like Brainerd area. We do everything from the Canadian border down to, I'd say, Brainerd to the middle of the state. We do everything from starting out with your consults, to planning your property, to planting food plots, making new food plots, clearing, brush, grubbing, whatever we got to do to put a food plot where it needs to go. We also do tree cuttings, timber cuttings for bedding areas, whatever you need done, whatever we think we need to get that property to meet its full potential. We also do tree plantings, shooting lanes, stuff like that. Anything you can possibly think of, deer stand placement. We also do we'll do anything for food plots, from tillage to seeding to spraying. We are a full land management company, so we can, if you're a cabin dweller and you're gone for the summer and you only want to show up at deer season and shoot a deer, we'll take care of your property from spring through the winter, and you only got to do is show up and hop in the deer stand. We can set the deer stands. We can do everything. So if you need anything like that, give us a call. But this is the start of our video series, designing a property, part one. We're calling it from pasture to deer production, because we're going to talk about this piece right here. It's 212 acres. It's all overgrazed pasture land right now. It's been in pasture for 15 years. This land was used a little bit for kind of just some recreational deer hunting also. It was kind of a dual purpose, but the owner has since sold the cows and he just wants it to be a deer hunting property. So we're going to show the way this property is set up currently, and we're going to go into every phase of building this property the right way. And as we do it, we're going to do videos and show you how it's done. But we're going to start out with this property the way it is. We're going to have part 2 is probably going to be bedding. Part 3 is going to be food plots. And part 4 is going to be stand and access and all that stuff, to make sure that we're creating the best possible space for the deer to grow mature deer on this property. So this is the property, how it's laid out currently. There is a cabin yard right here. This house grove is about 20. This cabin grove is about 20 acres. There is a 6-acre food plot. It's usually corn or beans down in this corner. There's about 20 acres of willows and other cover right here. There is a 2-acre little oak grove right here, and another 2.5-acre food plot right there. There is some scattered trees up here right now, not very thick. It's all just been grazed underneath, so it's wide open underneath. No, the only thing, this was fenced off, so this has got good underbrush. And then there's a few scattered oak trees up here next to we also have a road on the 2 sides of the property. So we're going to talk about the challenges of this property. Right now it's overgrazed. It's just bare grass, most of it. The fence line actually runs right here. So this, I'm going to change marker colors here. This is all just grazed pasture. The only place for a deer to really live on this property is in this little 20-acre strip in the cabin grove. So what we need to do, so most of the deer that use this property live on the neighbors 90% of the time. And we need to convert this property to where the deer live on the property 90% of the time and use the neighbors 10% of the time. I mean, deer have a small home range during the daylight. They have a big home range after dark, but we want them, first place they be when they get up in the evenings is to use this property. So the challenges of this property are there's no limited bedding cover. Deer also feed 5 times a day, and 3 of those times are during the day. So they feed at night, and then 3 times during the day, and then in the evening, right? So what we want to do is we have limited bedding. That's a problem on this property. It's very flat, so there's no safety. There's eyesight everywhere. Basically, if you walk out of this cabin grove and a deer standing here, it's a quarter mile away, but they can see you. So just the flatness and the line of sight on this property are forever, so you can see forever. Sight lines are a big problem. You can't go anywhere on the property without a deer being able to see you. And you don't want you to walk out in the morning and a deer can see you wherever you're walking out. So that's a big thing we got to change. There's limited browse. Deer need woody browse. There is not much for woody browse other than in this willow section, which it's red willows that, I mean, they do nibble on red willows, but it's not their preferred browse in the winter, or not their preferred woody brow is what I should say. So we got to fix all that. We got a lot to fix. It's also very sandy soil, and it's dry most of the time. So sandy, dry soil. It's not the most fertile soil. So what we can plant is also going to be a little limited and a little challenging. This is going to be a long project, just with all the things we have to add to it. I mean, I've seen a lot of videos taking overgrown trees and making a good deer habitat. There ain't a lot of videos on the internet taking nothing and making it something. So it's going to be kind of a unique series. I mean, I know a lot of people probably have open ground and they don't know what to do with it or how to set it up. But so this is kind of going to be a cool series just because you don't see much like it. One thing we want to do, we got to get deer off the neighbors, right? There's a lot of deer in the area, but most of them live on the neighbors most of the time. I mean, I've seen pictures where there's 30 deer out in this food plot in an evening and 10 out there, so there's 40 deer on the property, but they're only there for a couple hours. And so we got to get deer off the neighbors. And I mean, all these neighbors hunt. Most of them are pretty good most of them are pretty selective the way it sounds, so selective with their deer harvest. For the most part, we should say. But there's heavy hunting pressure all the way around, which is good. Like if you're trying to build a deer property to hold deer, heavy hunting pressure done the wrong way is actually good for you. I mean, a lot of people don't see it that way, but it's way easier to make your property the best property in the area when other people are doing their property wrong. So, okay, so like I said, this property is very open. I mean, there's nothing there. So, our main thing is get cover, cut off some sight lines. We also got to make the deer do what we want them to do so we can hunt them properly, right? We want to keep them from going nocturnal. So we want to keep them being able to see us, smell us, or hear us down to a minimum. So we got to be able to create the deer habitat to protect them from us, or from people, basically. They have to be on the property and feel safe to live on the property. If they don't feel safe, they won't live on there. So we're going to go through all that. We're going to go through big step process. I mean, we're going to go through all the steps, but we're going to start out. So now let's go over our goals for the property. Every time I meet with a client, the first thing we talk about before we even go anywhere, before we even step foot on the ground, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish with that property? Whether it's you want to use that property for ATV trail, I mean, you want the whole goal of the property is just to have fun. Some people, they bought that property and they want to enjoy every part of it. They want to have four-wheeler trails. They want to do grouse hunting. They want to do bear hunting. They want to do have big, huge parties out there in the evenings and just be a social party scene for all the hunting cabins in the area. There's many different ways you can look at your property. This property, we want to be a deer hunting property, but it's also used for a little bit of recreation. So we got to take that into mind. That it's never going to be perfect the way, you're never going to have complete seclusion from the deer, but the main goal of this property is to be a deer hunting property and the best deer hunting property it can be. So it needs to hold and grow mature bucks. Hold and grow mature bucks is priority probably number one. There's a couple kids that hunt this property. They also want to be able to see deer and just be able to shoot a couple does and have a good enough deer population that the kids can shoot does or whatever they want to shoot, and they go out every time they go out, they see some deer. So you got to be able to provide youth opportunities, right? So we got hold and grow mature bucks, provide youth opportunities. That's the main goals of this property. So your property may be different than this. Everybody's property is a little different. But this one, they want to grow and hold mature bucks, which is the easiest, it's the hardest thing to do, but the easiest thing to say you want to do. This property has history. There's been a couple nice deer that have been taken off this property. But the thing is, most deer a lot of them they get to 3 years old and they disappear. So they'll get pictures of the deer as a yearling and a 2-year-old and then a 3.5-year-old. And then come fall, they disappear. So it's kind of been a summer property and not really a big buck holding property just because of the lack of cover and the lack of security and lack of safety. So that's the main goals. We got to provide safety for the deer. We got to provide where they feel safe to grow up. Alright, and we also want a quality, healthy deer herd. Okay, so they need water, food, and cover. So we need cover. We also need water. There is not a lot of water on this property. There is none, actually. In the spring, there's some water down here and some water in this ditch. There's a ditch that runs here next to this road. But other than that, there's no water on the property. So establishing some water holes and getting spots where deer can drink. Deer get up in the afternoon. They want to go get some water, especially on those early fall days. They want to get some water and then go eat. So we want to keep the deer not nocturnal. A lot of properties have huge deer, but they're nocturnal because they're not treated right. So we're going to go through all those things and we're going to explain why each step is what it is. Next video number 2, is going to be about bedding, and we're going to be creating bedding on the property. Our goal is going to be to move the deer into the interior of the property, have it an inside-out property where the deer are in the middle of the property, feeding on the outsides, going back to their bedding areas in the middle of the property. So the deer might, ultimate goal would be deer are bedding here, using this food plot or maybe there's more food plots in the future, but they're eating on the property till dark, then they're leaving the property after dark to go feed somewhere else. They're coming back, hitting this back in the morning, and going back to bed. That's the ultimate goal, to get the deer to bed in the property where we want them. So in part 2, we'll cover bedding and lines of sight and getting rid of some of that stuff. It'll be a lot of trees and a lot of plantings and stuff, but we'll go over the whole plan for that type of stuff in the next video. So click subscribe, like, and wait for video number 2. Part 2 is going to be exciting. So